Good morning, everybody. You're watching Let's Talk About Prepping. I'm Tyler, your host. And in this early morning coffee chat, just in case it turns into a lonely short video, we're going to talk about physical fitness and limbering up. Physical fitness is an important part of prepping. It's a part that is often neglected. It's not necessarily easy to fit exercise into your daily routine, but it's an important part of life, and it's an important thing to take care of as a prepper. Looks like we have a couple folks in here. How you guys doing? Hey, Mike, how you doing? How you doing today, Mike? Right on. It's a good time for coffee. We were just talking about, well, I was just talking about limbering up, one of the rules of surviving the zombie apocalypse. Hey, Spengies. No, I've been a night owl lately myself, not so much of a early bird, but I fell asleep early last night, so here we are. But I got up with a little bit of energy. I was doing a little bit of stretching, and I was thinking about sharing a little bit of it, or at least the motivation to everybody, if you don't already do stretching or have physical activity in your life, to make sure to add a little bit of that in there. Maybe not necessarily first thing in the morning, but pretty early on if you can. A little bit of stretching out makes the rest of it hurt a little bit less, I've found. But I'm a fan of yoga. I don't take yoga classes, but I have learned yoga in association with martial arts in the past. So I continue to do what I learned when I was taking Kempo and what I've picked up along the way. I do sort of think that that's why those Eastern individuals that live a long time do have a little bit of a longer lifespan. I think stretching and working your muscles and toxins out a little bit is a part of that. Right on, Spangies. I'm pretty active in my job, but I do like to take care of the gaps that it leaves me with. So what is everybody up to today? Yep, I've been slacking quite a bit. I usually do a few miles on the bike, but I've been doing less than I used to. But yeah, if you don't work out, at least do stretch. And good morning, 2x2s. All right, Mike. Yep, you just hang out. Got to get out of jury duty. Yeah, no one likes jury duty. Like I was saying, if you're not ready to start working out, at least do stretch. Stretching is one of those things that's very easy to slack off on and get away from, but I do think that it'll have a lot of benefits. For one thing, it's just going to help with your energy levels. It's going to help you not be sore later. I know that stretching hurts, but it really is an investment in not hurting as much later. What you're doing is you're working toxins out. You're helping your muscles to be in a more natural position, because most of us were pretty cramped and constricted in how our muscles sit in a relaxed position. So constantly paying attention to that and working them out is going to give you a lot of benefit later, where they're not sort of feeling stuck in those positions, or when you go to reach down and stretch out a group of muscles, that's not the first time that day that they've been asked to do something like that. It's going to save you a lot of pain later. It also, like I said, washes out a lot of the toxins, because when your muscles sit in one place, they aren't actually, reaching their full range of motion. And a lot of studies have shown that muscle contractions actually have a large part to do in your circulatory system. So it's important, even if a lot of your day you spend sitting or laying around, to at least be working your muscles around and getting that full range of motion in. Yeah, they do start that jury duty stuff really early in the morning. Sort of all the early birds sort of want to make everybody else do stuff by their rules. Anybody doing anything outdoors lately, or got any outdoor plans, camping, fishing, hiking around, anything like that? You might get out of duty, Mike, but you might get on to something else. Hey, Rick, how you doing today? Yeah, I want to go outside. I just haven't figured out what I'm going to do yet. I do have my survival fishing tin that I got from Eric over at Lord Humongous. That's rulethewasteland.com. And I actually just went online yesterday and ordered a pocket bellows from him, so that this thing doesn't get burnt up the next time that I do a fire video, which I do think that it got singed in that last one. But he does have his kit and that bellows there on his site, and I think it's good to support our fellow prepping entrepreneurs. I like to think that if I ever go and make an item that I think is useful for preppers, and I honestly think that it'd be useful for people to buy it, I hope that other people will take me up on that. So any chance that I get to use your guys' Amazon links when I think about it, I don't shop on Amazon that often, but I do try to do that. So level your mobile home. Yep, that's sort of a constant thing, especially if you get a lot of rain. You can pretty much expect your ground to change a little bit every few years. We get a lot of rain and a lot of fluctuating freeze in my area. So we see ranges of -20 to 105 degrees in a year. So the ground can heave quite a bit. Yep, Rick, I'm getting a combo kit with 2 of them. So I probably should have just gone ahead and had him ship 2 combo kits so that I could have extras, but it's probably the kind of thing that I might end up getting a bulk order of myself once I get a little bit of money ahead. I've done that with a few things, and it always ends up being worth it when it's a product that you're going to use, not like a gimmicky thing. But like, I've got hundreds of razor blades just because I use them in my handout little let's talk about prepping baggies, and it's just been a very handy thing to have around aside from that. So any chance that I get, if it's something that I think I'll use more than just a few of in my lifetime or want to hand out, I just like to go bulk with it. Yeah, they might just high five you and tell you to get on in there. That's funny. Yep. Rick, I was almost tempted just to figure something out myself. It's I'm always tempted to just improvise something. I'm pretty sure I could go buy a 10 feet of copper coil and improvise something. But like I said, it's a pretty handy little thing, and I do like to support our fellow people. Uh, I think I could have probably gotten it a little cheaper if I got the cheapest one on Amazon, but I'm pretty sure Eric has these. He's used these. So I would rather just make sure that a fellow prepper has handled them and knows what's getting shipped out rather than just maybe getting something that is a little thinner or just whatever. So it is worth the extra dollar or two on a product to me to go through somebody else where they've got their stamp of approval on it if I trust that. But yeah, you can find those for about seven. I think the ones I saw were about 750 or seven something for two pairs of the extendable collapsing. If any of you don't know what we're talking about, it looks like an old school telescope. It's a very long, very thin straw-like instrument made out of metal that you can extend and put in the base of your fire and blow into it to avoid singeing your beautiful mane. Oh, okay. Yeah, I probably wouldn't look to use a radio antenna. I mean, that's a good idea. You could use a reed and just sort of slowly feed it into the fire. Yeah, I bet the antenna would work. Sort of an old school antenna. I think the modern ones are like a wire whip mostly. If they even have them, a lot of them are just like a little digital node poking off the top. Car antennas are mean weapons, though. They'll lay skin open. They'll also get you charged with much more serious offense if you try using one. But yes, man. Next time you're at the junkyard, ask them if you can cut the seat belts out of some of the cars. I did that, and they let me have them for free. So I tipped them a little bit to make sure that they remembered me next time I come by. But I went by there, and I had a little project that I'm planning on working on. And I said, "Hey, do you think that I could go in there and run out some seatbelt and cut it off?" And he's said, "Sure. I don't think anybody ever cares for seatbelt. I think it just goes away with the trucks." So I got hundreds of feet of seatbelt material, and that's good stuff to have. I'm going to go there again, actually, and get some car doors for shooting at to see what bullets go through what car doors with how much energy on the other side. Yeah, crossbow bolt would probably do pretty well as a air tube. Yeah, 2x2s. That was a very interesting video topic that you brought up about if your food is stored in the proper containers. I definitely think that a lot of people take for granted that what they have it stored in is going to be healthy for them long term. I think that that's why it's important to eat your preps and rotate them constantly. Have your food that you prep be part of your everyday diet. That way it doesn't ever sit there very long. Most of my preps get rotated pretty quickly because I do live with a few family members. So between 5 of us, we actually rotate through it pretty quick and just keep a large store ahead of ourselves. Yeah, it wouldn't take much, Spangies. But yeah, that seatbelt, I got I've got a garbage bag full of seatbelt material now that I'm going to use for various projects. Good morning, Heaven Bound Homestead. How are you doing? We're just hanging out, talking about a few different things. We started off talking about limbering up, stretching, the importance of physical fitness and keeping your body healthy, and talking about the collapsible and extendable fire bellows that you use to blow air into a fire. And we are also talking about some salvage, just reusing some valuable items that are free to get. Morning, Seether. How you doing? Oh yeah, junkyards, scrap yards, um, even just at the dump. If you live in an area where you can go into your small town dump and they'll let you salvage, which a lot of them won't. They want to keep it for themselves. But if you can get in there, there's always something good in there, especially if you are a repurposing kind of person. I've often in my past been unemployed and needed to get by or have craftiness to be able to make a little bit of money. And if you are thinking in that frame of mind and you go into even literally just your dump, go to the metal pile or something like that, you'll almost always find something that's almost in just normal good condition that someone was done with. Thrift stores, junk, vehicle scrap yards, stuff like that tend to have stuff that you can make use of. Hmm. Oh, okay, Spangies. The sugar crush. Yeah, I think that people will. I mean, it will really be a matter of starvation at that point. But between, yeah, I mean, sugar, just your processed foods, everything is going to have a very detrimental effect on people. Um, Coleman stoves, like when sodas are all gone. Yeah, no, it is true. A lot of people, if you look around and actually watch your average person, they're fueling with sugar throughout the day. And sugar has byproducts which are strongly addictive and um, which essentially will, give you withdrawal symptoms if you suddenly go off of it. Um, I'm by no means liberated from sugar, but I am conscious of it, how much that I intake because just for various reasons, not necessarily because I'm worried about sudden sugar shortage or anything, but a lot of people need their diet sodas, their regular sodas, both of which mimic your energy production in various ways, let alone energy drinks and stuff like that. So, yes, your average person, whenever they suddenly lose that huge high of sugar and the energy and serotonin stuff that it gets them, they are going to go into a sort of depression, frustration, tailspin, just like anybody who's addicted to anything and doesn't have enough to wean themselves off of it with. But yeah, there are just so many factors that'll come into people's frame of mind and their efficiency as things like that happen. Um, Even just ourselves, I think that a lot of preppers are going to start to realize the gaps that they have in their preps. Um, you can get by on just rice and beans, but if you're not currently trying it out, I would suggest that you try to just go for a week on just rice and beans. It's not hard to just cook enough up for 3 or 4 days and spice them differently and just try to live on different meals made from those things and recognize what it feels like to your body to suddenly go on just that. Because most of us are either eating much more healthily with fresh greens and stuff like that than we would be if we go on our prep foods, or we're eating processed foods and various other stuff like that, which if we suddenly go on to our rice and our beans, our digestive system is going to have quite a bit of upset as it switches, because when you're eating those different things, the bacteria that are most prevalent in your stomach actually change. So that's why whenever you actually go from all McDonald's and stuff like that to just rice and home cooked food, you're going to have a short period of diarrhea or something like that as your gut switches over the way that it digests stuff. Yep, Maple. Yep. Hey, DMAC, how you doing today? Yep, so good suggestions in there. Evil Rick has some old sugar because he doesn't touch it. I hope that he has it properly stored, because sugar will start to absorb smells, sort of like baking soda does. Probably wouldn't really change how good it is for you, but the main point of that is that he hardly uses sugar. Yeah, it's probably good to avoid McDonald's. That's most fast food I would advise against. I've worked in fast food a lot of my life, and I'll be honest, if I'm not making it myself, I don't really trust it. It's always been a second job or just like something that I've been doing for a while. Yeah, Spangies. Sugar, I think most of our bodies don't really like sugar too much. It's just our brains that do. But my brain controls my body. Ooh, that's not good though. I just read your first comment. Yeah, no, sugar itself doesn't go bad. I'm sure you don't smoke in your house or anything like that, but there are things that if it's just in a paper bag sitting on a shelf, it could start caking up with some of the moisture from breath and in your air and stuff like that. But it wouldn't really go bad. It just might not taste like pure sugar. But that really doesn't matter. It's sugar. Yeah, DMAC. I'm addicted to the all pink Starburst. They have tubes of just pink Starbursts, and I don't know how there isn't just one in everybody's hand at all time, because that's like heroin in candy form. That should probably be illegal to just leave on a shelf where a child can reach it. Like me. Grab some water. Yeah, I assume she's nearby. Mike's around. I hope that they're storing Oreos. Oh yeah, Spangies. I don't think that I've been able to get away with that kind of diet for like a few years now. I would regret that. Yeah, pink Starbursts are good. I can eat, a 12-pack of those startlingly fast. I'm not unwrapping multiple ones at once yet, but if there's not an intervention, I might be there before too long. Lazy weeks are good to have, Spangies, sometimes. Yeah, definitely need to relax every once in a while, and sometimes for more than just 1 or 2 days. So what does everybody have going on today? I'm going to be doing this for just a little bit longer, and then maybe doing a video to upload later, and then going to work. Yeah, no, Spangies. I was thinking more a lazy week of eating healthily and just not doing a lot physically. But I don't think that I could go a week with an abusive diet like that without really, hating myself for it, feeling sick. I don't know how, but I've gotten around to eating a lot of salad. I did not used to eat salad, and I never would have expected myself to eat a lot of salad, but I've really come around to needing to eat a good bowl of spinach every couple days to have my stomach feel the way I want it to. Oh, cool. DMAC Outdoors is gonna put up a video later today, and then go up into the mountains where there's some snow. Sounds pretty fun. You can't be out all day and then eat a heavy meal. Yeah, that makes sense. Your stomach muscles tend to contract whenever you're out and about moving a lot, to the point where a lot of it sort of locks down for even up to a day after being on the move. Just how much your torso locks up. And yeah, weather does have a good bit to do in that. In fact, this is something that I've heard multiple people who would know, especially military people and expedition hikers and stuff, and something that I've experienced as a Boy Scout in my past. Sometimes when you go out into the woods for an excursion, something that you know mentally and instinctively is going to be a long-term thing, a few days, your digestive system will sometimes lock up for even up to a day or longer than that, to where you're not having bowel movements and maybe even lose your appetite almost completely, except for a calorie baseline, until you normalize to your environment. Yeah, if you've got natural flint rock, you don't got to ship it to me, but that's pretty cool. I wouldn't mind ever having some of that. Yeah, DMAC. It's an instinctive reaction just to your body knowing that you're going to be in a new environment. It's just you're going to be able to move around a lot more with your torso muscles locked up, and there's just different positions that your intestines and stuff sit in, depending on how your abdominal walls are flexed, basically. Heaven Bound Homestead is planting some seed this morning. Yeah, I'm not in tune with my growing cycle yet. I haven't done any, don't have a lot of experience gardening. I've grown plenty of trees and shrubs and different things like that in a nursery environment, but I haven't done a food garden myself. English flint rock kind of breaks them up. Yeah, Rick, I'll talk to you in one of Mike's live streams later about that. I wouldn't mind getting some natural flint rock and learning how to. Let's see, what would you use that for, practicing napping and maybe making some arrowheads or something like that? Yeah, DMAG, your GI tract, same. Yeah, I won't get too graphic, but there are some pretty well understood Boy Scout lore about the outhouse on the hike out. It's a well-known phenomenon. Niacin. See, there, are you saying niacin will help keep the GI tract moving along, or DMAC predictive text does disappoint quite often. Oh yeah, you did say fire kits. Yeah, it would be pretty cool to have a fire kit with some natural flint in it. but it'd also be pretty cool to break it down into some natural blades or arrowheads just for the primitive bushcraft of it. Yeah, obsidian would be even better. I live in a place that had a mix of natural obsidian and then some slag from an old forge nearby, I guess. And they were like, some of it was mixed up, so you sort of had to pick through it. But I have had some shards of obsidian, and that stuff can be wildly sharp. That's what they use to do scarless surgery with, because it actually uh, doesn't scar the cells that it cuts. Hey, Mr. Morris, what are we talking about? Oh, happy Friday for you. So the morning chat started off with talking about limbering up, the importance of stretching for health, avoiding injury, and potentially maybe for long life, but also just physical fitness in general. And then we have generally just moved on to talking about fire starting, salvaging, gardening, just asking what people are doing today. And did I say fire starting? We're talking about using flint and collapsible tubes to blow a fire to life. Quartz. Yeah, quartz has a lot of fracture lines in it. I do know that. But I didn't know that it would spark well with other things. That's pretty cool. Maybe I've heard that before. Oh, niacin for purging excess radiation with electronic saturation. Interesting. Okay, yeah. Niacin is an important part of energy production in the body, so putting it in hiking and bugging out bags is a good idea. And I do know that it, yeah, has a detoxifying or purging effect. Niacin, if I'm from being outside in the sun, yeah. If I'm correct, niacin has a sort of metabolizing effect that sort of causes your body to do something with your fat cells that can cause them to shake off a bit of toxins. I don't really have a very technical understanding of it. And that might be completely apocryphal, so don't quote any of that. But yeah, stretching and physical activity are going to do a lot for your health, just generally, because a lot of us don't appreciate how many toxins and various other things get stored up in our muscle cells, our fat cells, and how even just a little bit of brisk activity and getting your heart rate up will help purge a lot of that, which that alone is going to have a really good effect on your general health. But then it's going to have a hormonal effect, going to get you generally feeling better and wanting to do more of it and have sort of a cumulative effect. Yeah, Evil Rick, I might try that out and make a video while I experiment with that. He's talking about making a steel striker for a fire kit. Presumably this would work for quartz or flint. He might verify that for me. But you're making a steel striker by grinding off the edges, so that would be the rough, the raspy grooves on there that are used for filing, using an angle grinder or something like that. And don't get it hot as you do that, so just very light strokes until you have a very smooth, sharp-edged, very right angles or even maybe more. Any rock that breaks with a sharp edge. There you go. Um, and then you're going to break the file into 4 pieces, and you've got little chunks of very high carbon, very hard steel that is going to make your sparks when you strike it against rocks that break with sharp angles and sharp edges. Good to know. It wouldn't be a bad, craft to have in a long-term grid down situation. I think a lot of people in the chat here probably have a flint and steel ferro rod, but if you were to actually know where to go and take a sledgehammer or something and break off a big old chunk of flint in the woods and bring it back and be able to just make flint and steel kits and teach people how to use them, you'd have a little workshop going there. Nice. Well, forge would be a nice thing to have. I made that little plaster sand one, but that's not really a forge. It's just a little homemade temporary kiln. But let me tell you, if I had a homestead and some money, I would be putting in all kinds of those little utilities, like a forge, stuff like that. Big old propane tank. But yeah, Rick, I might be trying that out myself with the making strikers for flint and steel, because I don't really like using my knife edge or anything like that. I don't necessarily want to modify the back edge of my knife until I know just what kind of angle I like. So might be a good idea to practice with making some strikers. Nice, DMAC. Yeah, I would probably, cinder blocks I've heard work pretty well. How long have you been using it? If I got serious about it, I would probably save up and do the refractory cement and just sort of pour in the shape that I want. 6 months? Wow. Huh. All right, that's not bad. The things that I've heard suggest that they would break down pretty quick with just the cinder blocks. Yeah, DMAC, it looks fun. I don't have enough to want to do a lot with. I just want to melt a little bit of silver. But if I was getting into reclaiming aluminum or copper or anything like that, which could be pretty interesting, haven't had to rebuild it, right on. So yeah, that would be pretty fun to get into. What do you mostly do with it? Oh, annealing steel. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Not bad at all. Backyard blacksmithing. Cool. I haven't had the chance to get around to watching some of your backlog videos. I don't know if you have any videos about your blacksmithing, but that'll be interesting to check out if you do. The anvil, yes. The anvil is definitely the expensive part, as far as I can tell. Used anvils go for about $3 a pound, and for any real work, you need at least 100 pounds. So for a used 100-pound anvil, you can expect to pay about $300. Yes, that is heavy. Oh, he was correcting a typo. That is heavy, both on the wallet and on the back. be pretty nice to have a big anvil. You definitely want to go heavy if you were getting into it, because that's the kind of thing. Why buy? I mean, you probably might want multiple ones, but if you think that there's any chance you're going to go bigger on any kind of hobby, and it's a serious one that you plan on getting into, get the good setup. What makes an anvil need to be replaced? I'm curious. That must be a lot of work that got done on it. Get rounded edges and stuff, I suppose. Missing pieces and pitted. Yeah, makes sense. I guess if you pound away at something with enough hard steels, it's going to start wearing at it, or even just equally hard steels. And on that note, just before that, Evil Rick tossed in, if you're going to do any hard steel, make sure the anvil is hardened on the head. And it's very true. I haven't done smithing work, but I've done machining work, so I know a thing or two about needing your, tooling steels to be harder than what you're working on. And it sat in the rain for a few decades. I just found in our garage, my dad had told me that we had it. It's a steel crucible, or wrought iron crucible, I think, that they used to use in a log mill back in their hometown. If I remember correctly, it has something to do with sharpening the blade using lead on a large bandsaw, or clamping the blade while it's being sharpened or something like that as a guide. And they would actually re-pour these guides of lead themselves. And so this crucible is half full of lead still from like 60 years ago. And it's just been used as a doorstop or whatever that whole time. Oh, Seether. It's a good idea. Hold on a second. I won't tell you to go back in my videos and check this one out. I got this thing for $2.50. It might have been $4. I can't quite remember. But Seether was just talking about how everyone seems to forget that no one has a really large duffel bag. But it's really hard to tell how large this one is. This is as large as a military footlocker and holds more with those side bags on it. But yes, and it's got rollers and an extending handle, so it's actually a carry-on luggage bag, but it acts like a duffel bag with the way that the top handles work on it. And it's pretty superior for a bug-out bag. Yeah, if you have a duffel bag and someone kills you, now they have somewhere to put all your gear when they run off with it. Or you can put their gear in it when you win. Yeah, it was a fun find. My thrift store, the one that I go to around here, if you go on half price day, you can get some remarkably good stuff. And that's a Samsonite case. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure I could resell that for at least 30, 40 bucks if I tried to. But it's too good of a bag for me to let go of. So Evil Rick is giving some really good advice for grinding an anvil back into shape. And he said make sure not to get it hot or you'll detemper it. That sounds like a pretty involved task. I think Evil Rick should be making more videos. He sounds like he's, usually whenever he does something, it's got or says something or anything, it's carries the weight of experience. So what do you guys use for your bug out bag, if you have one, or your get home bag, your bolt bag, your patrol bag, whatever it is that you have, your bag that you keep ready just to go on a camping excursion, whatever you guys do, what's it in? I'm currently using an REI excursion pack. It's a very large internal frame pack. I also have a small day pack that is the bolt bag, in case I don't have the time to really grab the excursion pack and gear up. Yeah, Evil Rick has been around the block a time or two. Probably forgotten more than the rest of us know. Motorcycle saddlebags. That's a good one. I like that. I actually did a recent video just sharing some of the different options. I'm sure a few of you guys here probably saw that, where I shared the big duffel rolling bag and a few different things. I really like fishing vests. I also have some Molly or Alice tactical vests, and those are really good. I really like the vest because it puts stuff around the front. Tactical ones really stand out in a lot of places, but like the fishing vest that I have, it has more capacity than a small hiker's backpack, like the little teardrop shaped ones. This hiker's vest has a whole large pocket across the whole back of it that expands out large enough to fit a whole pillow into if you were to cram it in, just to give you an idea of how much volume it has. So the whole back of it is actually two panels that make a giant pocket. It's got pockets all down the front, on the inside and outside of the vest. And I guarantee you that a crafty prepper would have way more than they need to survive just in a fisherman's vest, a beige, nondescript, old man fisherman's vest. And nobody would ever know. You could walk right into a FEMA camp or right through a crowd of people, and only the most observant people would notice that you might have some stuff in there that they want. So Evil Rick says for get home bag, he uses a military load vest. So yeah, and those are good. That's actually what I had a lot of my stuff in for a long time. I have a black webbing style with just pockets all over it, sort of like, for lack of a better term, what you might expect someone to have on in Vietnam, only black instead of olive. But just, pouch here, pouch here, pouch here, big pouches all around the waist. And under that, I was using a plate carrier Molly vest. But whenever I actually took all the stuff out and just weighed the nylon webbing vests, they were like 6 or 7 pounds to themselves. So while I keep the black webbing vest that has all the pouches, the plate carriers in my closet, until I really load it out with plates and anything. And then that would be more for whenever there's actually something serious going on. If I'm worried about walking around, I do like the load-bearing vest for if I'm not worried about, if I see other people wearing that kind of stuff. And I probably will, because my area has a lot of rednecks. So a lot of people are just going to be wearing camo and have an AR-15 strapped over their shoulder as soon as, even if there's no unrest in our area, people will use it as an excuse just to sort of feel country. So Gray Man isn't a huge consideration in my area, but I did switch to the REI pack because I can just carry so much stuff on that internal frame pack and comfortably. Cool, DMAC. So DMAC is talking about his kit. He uses Force Protector Gear 464, a rolling footlocker. So probably, let me see how heavy this one is, if I can just toss it into frame. Probably something like that. Big old rolling footlocker with just a couple plastic wheels at the bottom. I was coughing, not doing what those youngsters do. So yes, I use that two of those large black foot lockers to store my bug out kits in. One of them has my REI excursion kit in it, or internal frame pack, and the other one has just loose bulk supplies of food and various other stuff. Um, oh, DMAC uses a fabric one. It's the current USMC deployment bag. It's a tank. Oh, okay, that's cool. So it's something like that, but like a hard, sort of like a canvas or something. I'm sure it's a modern fabric. That's really cool. So this duffel bag, the Samsonite one, carries more stuff than that black rolling foot locker that I showed you. I don't know how, but if you actually stick it inside it, you have to crumple it down a little bit. And if you take it out, it holds up taller. And with the saddlebags, it spans wider. So it's pretty crazy. And I don't think people, I mean, you would need to be careful because if someone's sitting on their porch and they see you rolling by with a backpack and a big old foot locker, they're going to know you got stuff. So Evil Rick made a good point, and he said he can survive what he keeps in his pockets or on him at all times. And I think that that is the great way to be. And a lot of people, that's all they need. That's why I like the fishing vest approach, or even just, so there's the concept of different levels of EDC. You got your level 1, and that's going to be what's in your pocket or even on a necklace and on your body at all times. If you're going real hardcore, then you're going to have like a paracord bracelet with like a knife in it, and a flint and steel, and then a necklace with the rest of your 5 C's of survival. That way, even if you fall in the river and your clothes fall off, you've got strapped to your body all the things that you need to survive when you get out the other side of the river. Then your level 2 would be the stuff in your pockets. Level 3 would be the stuff in your coat. Level 4 would be the stuff in your fanny pack or something that you're carrying. And then 5 and 6 and 7 would be basically every layer that you can imagine where your needs for survival are duplicated and expanded on in each layer. But yes, the best way to be is to be able to survive with as little as possible, whether that's stuff that you can improvise in nature or the urban environment, or just the smallest amount of stuff that you can carry on your person. So that's why the minimalist EDC comes in. But I also think it's important to expand out from there. Myself, I'm the main person preparing for 5 people. So while the other members in my household are on board and they're pretty okay, they're cool with what I do and they like that I'm doing it, they don't necessarily want to put a lot of time or money or energy into it on a daily basis. They will whenever I have something that needs done and I have it coherent and ready for them to be involved with. But for the large part, I need to sort of take care of things unilaterally. So when it comes to bug out considerations, I want my bug out kit to be enough that if I grab just that and some extra food and supplies and sleeping bags, I can know that that base kit is more or less a bug out base camp. So that's why mine needs to go a little heavy. For an individual, a teardrop sized day hiker's kit should have plenty for you to survive a week or longer in the woods. And if you're really going bushcrafty, you can carry enough in literally a fanny pack or something like that to get yourself going in a short to mid-term bug out excursion kind of thing. Nice, DMAC. Yeah, that's one thing that I need to improvise for my roller bag is it has the duffel bag straps, but those don't really turn into a backpack very well. So I want to figure something out to turn it into a back frame pack also. Was it normal people or reality? Because we were talking on reality survival, weren't we? Interesting. Was that on the trifecta video last night? Because I missed that. Yeah, I remember Prepper Tech. We were in a discussion thread on JJ at Reality Survival and Prepping about the likelihood of that. Um, and I don't think it got too heated, but we were disagreeing quite firmly. I don't know. I imagine that he deals with people who are being a lot meaner than that. We were just trying to discuss facts. So, I mean, I felt like we were trying to just ask questions. I don't think he got too heated. I didn't know he deleted that. I sort of assumed he didn't because the last time I looked, it was there. But I prefer to move on from that kind of stuff. I missed the Trifecta stream last night, but I had already watched all 3 of their videos. You know, people are going to disagree, but yeah, Spangies, that's true. And I know the situation that you're in. My family's Mormon. So I actually grew up with food storage, with 72-hour kits, with the knowledge that we thought that we were living in time of revelations, or that we would maybe see the second coming. So in my worldview and in their worldview, we have always dealt with the knowledge that we might see this kind of stuff and that we're somewhat prepared for it. So for that reason, my family is actually more or less just pretty cool with the way that I take things over. They like that I do this. They see the practicality in having it as a lifestyle, and they're more than happy for me to continue to add to our food stores, and they contribute whenever it's appropriate to do so. But I don't expect them to be all in and just all prepping with me. And they do where, you know, a normal person would, but they have their own lives and their own things to take care of. So I don't make this about being a family thing, but they do contribute, and they are more on board with it than what a lot of people have. So I'm pretty lucky in that regard. But I do agree with you. Prepping for other people is good, but you really need to have a coherent plan with how you're going to induct them and train them up for how things need to be. Because it's true that it's going to be like herding kittens. Most people are too individual and too mindless when it comes to what you're going to need to be like in these kinds of situations. So a lot of preppers think that they're just going to be the leader of the group, but they have no idea how to lead and no idea how they're going to get people in line, because generally most preppers are sort of seen as the black sheep of the family, and people are going to have a hard time coming around to listening to what you have to say when they've spent all this time thinking that you're crazy. Just because you happen to be right about this doesn't mean that they're just suddenly going to realize that you're the wisest of the bunch. So it is going to be like herding kittens and dealing with toddlers, and it is going to actually be a lot more like dealing with teenagers. So it's important to have a coherent plan, to be thinking of who you expect to be standing in front of and trying to get in line, and what you're going to do to get them to realize that you have been thinking about these things, and that, and to actually have valid information and things to give. You can't just think that just because you've been buying food that you will have the best choices to make in that situation. There are a lot of preppers who aren't going to be the best ones to lead their groups if their groups include people who have been part of emergency response or dealt with disasters or things like that, and just aren't preppers. So it's important to actually have a coherent plan with what you're going to do with the people that you prep for. Like I said, I'm pretty lucky that my family's pretty on board, and it's going to be a pretty cooperative endeavor, whatever we deal with. But there are going to be a lot of people who are outright in shock, who are dealing with the in the moment, who are gaining PTSD while you're trying to get them to cooperate with you in a stressful situation. And you're going to have people who are very A-type and try to take control in the wrong direction. And you might also have people who have very coherent and reasonable arguments against what you think should be done. So it's just very important to not, when you're talking about prepping for other people, if you don't have that discussion openly with them already, to think about what you're going to do in the moment when it comes up. It's very tough to leave for that moment. 4 people, 7 days. Yep. Essentially a camping kit. And that's a good way to be, to simply be already camping for good chunks of time and know exactly what that takes. I mean, a lot of people can't do that regularly, but if you do have the opportunity to take a 3-day camping trip and just use what you might use if you're bugging out, that's really going to get you thinking about what will keep you comfortable, what will keep you going. And really, I mean, comfortable is sort of sounds like a luxury term, but you need to be comfortable to continue working efficiently. A lot of people think that they're just going to rough it through a bunch of freeze-dried food and stuff like that. And you really need to ask yourself how many days of that you can do without being so miserable that you're actually losing efficiency in a stressful situation. So yes, going out on regular camping trips, essentially, and using your bug out supplies, testing them out, will actually get you streamlined to where you're using stuff that you're more than happy to use, and your bug out kit is actually more a camp at any moment kit. Bring the grill inside. People do that kind of stuff, Spangy's bringing the grill inside. Hey, Deadhead, how you doing? Yeah, I did see that he had also talked about something recently. You know what's interesting is I think someone talked to a couple channels about what unescapable natural disasters, because a few big channels have done videos about them lately. Like, they all got the idea from someone giving them comments, which is fine. I've made plenty of videos from comments, but I noticed that a few big channels sort of did what would happen, what natural disasters would just be, you couldn't actually do something to escape from. Yeah, Spangies. All right, see you, Spangies. Good luck with that judging people. Jury duty can be a hassle. I'll talk to you later. Thanks for dropping in. Yeah, Evil Rick. Camping is the best and safest way to learn how to live without stuff you normally think you need. And it's sort of, I mean, it's hard to get people to understand that, because what you have to say is go camping more. And it sounds frivolous. But what I'm talking about isn't going car camping. I'm talking about spend a while thinking about what you want in a backpack to live for 4 days right now. Because that's pretty much the same thing that a lot of people are talking about when they're bugging out, but they're adding a rifle or something like that. So what you should be doing if you're thinking about bugging out is planning to go camping on your next day off. Not necessarily because you're going to, but when you start coherently thinking about, if I were to go on my next day off, if I were to leave from work with the stuff that I needed to go camping, where's the nearest place that I could go and expect to sleep without running into someone? And what are the things that I would want to have with me for at least 3 or 4 days right now on my next day off? And when you really start thinking about what you can put into a backpack to be comfortable for those 3 or 4 days and come out of it and ready to work after a shower without needing a whole day to recuperate, that's really going to get you closer to what you need in a bug out bag. So that's the kind of camping that I'm talking about, not going to the beach and drinking beers and sleeping in a tent, because that's the kind of camping that needs a recuperate day afterwards. What I'm talking about, and I've lived this way, I'm not necessarily camping, but off the grid. I've lived in the woods and essentially done what most people would consider to be camping, but with a very rough shed, while I was breaking ground on what was going to be a homestead, and then taking a quick shower to rinse the smoke and stuff off, and then going to a day job. And I never had any interaction between the two. I was just a normal person. And until I told people that at night I went and lived off the grid, they didn't know it. So you can get yourself to a point, and I don't live like that anymore. I'm pretty suburban nowadays. But you can get to a point, and it's very very good to, where you know what it takes to go live in the woods and be comfortable and continue to carry on your everyday life, because that's what you're going to need if you ever need to bug out to the woods. Because a lot of bug out situations aren't necessarily going to be Moses head into the wilderness kind of things. They're going to be, my whole neighborhood burned down, but I still need to go to work. So what I'm doing is camping outside of town in the same field that the rest of my neighborhood, my neighbors are, and still needing to take a bucket shower and go to my job or something like that. So those are the kinds of things where you're going to find the most use from going out and camping and testing that stuff out. It's going to show you the failures in your systems. It's going to get you efficient at living that way to where you're more or less just re-gearing yourself to live that way rather than just having this huge upheaval of your lifestyle. Yep, Evil Rick. If you're doing it right, hey, Uncle Al, glad you could drop in. I wondered if I'd see you. Yeah, so Evil Rick went into the woods in the Black Oak Swamp in Texas with just his basic EDC items and a 12 gauge for 4 days. And he didn't even need the 12 gauge. So that's really good to think about. I'm glad you didn't run into any hogs out there, because you might have needed to blow the hogs. Can be mean. But yeah, in most situations, you're not going to need the gun. And if you're properly prepped, then you won't need to hunt for food. So, oh, Maya's in here. Oh, hey, Analia. How you doing? And Myra. Hello, everybody. Yeah, glad you dropped in. Got a couple people who have missed a couple live sessions, so glad to see you guys. We're drinking what's probably cold coffee. Room temperature, but it's still good. I use a natural creamer, so as long as you don't let it start going rancid, it's just fine, cool. So Evil Rick doesn't need a shotgun because he simply communes with the wolves and coyotes and badgers, just all kinds of good friends. I imagine that he just meditates in the middle of a clearing and his food walks right up to him. Right on, Mike. I sort of figured that you were still in here. Numbers haven't fluctuated too much. Thanks for chiming in. Getting some t-shirts done before the printer gets here and he can do coffee mugs. Leftover coffee from yesterday. Well, that's very efficient of you, Anna. Caesar. Yes, I've watched some of the primitive channels. I do like some of them. I certainly hope that I never find myself in a situation where I can't at least salvage some of the modern supplies that we have. But I do think it's really good to know how to use clay. I'm wondering where some of those guys live, that they have riverbanks that are literally just pure prime clay, because I haven't seen that up here in the mountains. But a lot of those are really good. One of my favorite things that I can think of just off the top of my head is making cordage out of plastic bottles. Yet again, that's a postmodern primitive skill, but those are going to be some of the most effective ones in a postmodern collapse. A lot of us aren't going to be on a riverbank using clay. We're going to be in a landfill salvaging metal or ceramic or things like that for a lot of the stuff that we need. So what I'm talking about there is the 2-liter plastic bottles, and you get yourself a razor blade and you sort of set it so that it's flat on another surface, just less like a half a centimeter up off the surface. And you get a 2-liter plastic jug bottle on it so it will spin in a circle, and you can draw cordage off of it by cutting it using the razor blade. You can look up 2-liter bottle cordage on YouTube, and I'm sure that you will find videos of that. Hey, Nick, are you being inappropriate there? I don't have any mods yet, but I have a laptop. I have a pen, and I have a phone. King of Random is a good channel. I follow him. I don't think I've missed. I think I've missed the last couple ones, but I've done a couple projects from him. What was the good video that King of Random did there, Tech? Like a recent upload? Oh, okay. Well, that might have been the one that I watched. I think that it was a Primitive channel that I watched it on, but King of Random is pretty prominent. So if he does a video on a topic, it'll probably be the one that gets pushed to the top. But those are the kinds of skills that I think will be really handy for a lot of people. Those are the kinds of things that I've already used. Not the plastic cordage one, but just life hacks, basically. Sometimes you find yourself in a situation where it's not handy to go to the store, or you're broke or on a budget or whatever. And being able to go, hey, I have something that I've tried before or heard of before that could be handy. So that's the kind of stuff that's useful just nowadays to save yourself some time or money, and also in situations where you're not able to go to the store at all. Yeah, definitely, Myra. If you haven't seen the plastic cordage one, I actually plan on making a video of it because it's actually just a good skill to have, is how to make that kind of thing. That's why practicing those things, and rather than just having watched the videos, pardon me, coffee burp, rather than just having watched the videos like I have, I've never done the plastic cordage, but I watched it enough times, I've got it up here, that I'm absolutely confident I could recreate the system using stuff that I know I have in my house. But I haven't done it yet. So what I need to do is actually go and set it up, maybe even a few times, so that I know I can do it quickly and efficiently, because sometimes you might actually need to do it with time on the line. Maybe not a life and death situation with plastic cordage, but you never do know. If that's the only way that you can lift somebody down out of a burning building, by making 10 strings of that and braiding them together, because that's literally the only cordage you can come up with. I mean, that's a very imaginative situation, but there are situations where you need cordage and you need to make it within a half hour. And the only way you could do that is if you're practiced in how to do it. So that's why I really enjoy making these videos about practical application skills, because if it's something I've done before, like making fires, I have made, I would say, at least thousands of fires in my lifetime, from camping all throughout childhood, where we were doing fire building competitions multiple times in a day, to living off the grid and in a wood smoke home or wood heated home. I have made countless fires, but I haven't in a few years. And my recent video where I used wet wood on a windy day was pretty embarrassing. But you know, I'm going to get the practice from doing these videos and from making things like that plastic cordage just to share with people. That will give me the practice of having a little bit more efficiency and things like that. Yeah, Evil Rick points out the plastic cordage does have its problems. You can't use it around fire. It's true that military cordage is going to withstand fire quite a bit longer. It's going to be more likely to try to fuse down onto the inner layers than just to spaghetti out like a plastic cordage would. Hey there, Rollis Carvelis. How you doing today? Anybody else that I've missed? How you doing? Yeah, Uncle Alex to point out that the trick to lighting wet wood is always a road flare. I actually don't have a road flare in with much of my gear, unless it's just in, except for the ones in the road kits. But I do keep a blowtorch with a propane bottle, pencil nose one. I keep that for a few reasons. It would be handy both for utility. I mean, it's pretty handy pretty often for me. If you ever have to unlock metal threads, giving the two sides of the metal threads a little bit of a different heat will often break them apart from each other. It's not unheard of for me to need to go help with plumbing or irrigation around here. So have found I actually just started keeping a blowtorch in my car with my toolkit because of how often it's handy. Um, and not to mention a few different uses that you could think of in a grid down kind of collapse situation. I also like to use sterno cans for my grab bags that I make for other people. I don't think that it's the best option for your personal bug out kit, but they do fill a lot of niches. And the propane blowtorch helps get things to boiling if it is too cold or too high altitude to use alcohol for that. Um, so I think that a blowtorch is a really good thing to have in your camping or bug out kit, not only because you can generally get them for a lot cheaper than you can a camping butane or propane stove, and they're going to be smaller, and you can't really use a propane stove to defeat a padlock, for instance, if your life depended on that. So just something to think about there. I really like the blowtorch because even if you have no other options, you know that you're going to be able to braise some wood dry and then use that as the core of a real fire. So road flares are good, but I also like the propane bottles because you have a lot of BTUs in there, both for fuel, for getting work done, and just, propane bottles are very handy to have for all kinds of survival applications. Hey, Morning Light, how you doing? Good to see you on one of mine. Prepper, that is something that we might try out. Um, you never know. I mean, I imagine that thermite would light a fire. The thing with thermite is it has a very high ignition point, so you pretty much need to be igniting it with magnesium, which means that you've either got welding supplies or else you're going to be scraping a pile of magnesium off with your flint and steel, and this just sounds like a really long process. So yes, if you've got thermite, and this is actually something I probably wouldn't go all thermite. What I would actually do, because I'm thinking about designing fire starting kits, what it's going to be is a very heavy butcher paper cardboard tube with various fuels inside, designed as a rocket stove. So it's got a air chimney coming up from the bottom. And I have considered not thermite, but powdered oxygen welding material to increase the airflow in this fire starter. So I would probably be using something like wood chips and sawdust with wax and powdered oxygen. Thermite has a lot of applications, but I wouldn't necessarily think of it first for fire starting. So yeah, DMAC says 10,500 with 15 degrees Fahrenheit with alcohol with minimal issues. And that's true. If you're just trying to heat something up, we're not necessarily talking about producing rolling boils with questionable water when we're talking about just heating up some of the water that you have. So using alcohol, especially if you have a way to rocket stove it, so wrapping both the stove and what you're heating, so all that heat is concentrated on your target, alcohol really isn't a bad option. Pardon me here a second. Another reason that I like alcohol, and I don't want to harp on it because it's not the best option, but it does get a bad rap among experienced preppers, is it really does get the job done, especially if you use it right, and it's dividable. I'm going to do a video on this and show how you can divide a sterno can into 4 or 5 little candles essentially to boil cups of water for people. And this is really handy if you have a group of 5. You don't necessarily want to set up a base camp. You can get everybody a cup of hot water with just 1 can of sterno out of 1 pack. And in fact, it's something that just one person can take care of while everybody else works. So between that and just a few other options like using the alcohol gel to help start fires with, I really think that a can of sterno alcohol gel is just a really handy thing to have around. Morning Light. So DMAC uses methanol versus alcohol. Oh, he's using a alcohol stove. Okay. So yes, alcohol stoves are going to give you better efficiency than the Sterno. 120 gallons of methanol. Okay, that's not bad at all. So, Morning Light, Uncle Al has a theory on. I'm not actually really clear myself on just what the event is going to be, but he's pretty confident on December being a deadline for some kind of crisis. You're gonna have to watch his channel, Morning Light. He drops hints in his videos, and he's an old school survivalist. He knows what he's talking about. I don't know about that deadline, but he seems pretty confident in it. He plans to get 1,000 videos done by then. The remainder of 1,000. Don't need that. I just muted my desktop speakers. Can somebody give me a thumbs up if they still hear me? Evil Rick says maybe if I, okay, cool. Thank you, DMAC. Evil Rick says Christmas is the crisis he fears, or maybe he fears that Christmas is the crisis Uncle Al is talking about. I don't know. English is a very vague language. Well, crap. We have the most. Yes, you didn't have a very lucky winter, Anna. I would say harden up for next winter. If Uncle Al is right, busted pipe might be the least of your worries, and that would sort of suck to have. Thank you guys for the thumbs up. I was starting to get YouTube notifications while talking to you guys, so I had to mute it, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't also mute my microphone. So much 120 gallons of methanol. Wow. 2 US gallons of methanol fuel has 56,800 BTUs. Whereas propane, oh, propane has more. Methanol is very good. That's in liquid form, not pressurized. So propane wasn't that considerably better that methanol isn't a good energy storage form. So that's really awesome that you have that much of it for free. Hey, Gangsta, how you doing? Good morning. We were talking about you earlier. Yep, you know some of the folks in here. I've stolen some of the streamers from over at Watchmen. Possible 30 shit hit the fan events, Tyler, from Earth changes to political changes. So Uncle Al has his eyes on 30 possible events that could converge and or be possible in December. Yep, I thought you might have heard that. Mike said he was lurking, so I figured that the grapevine would get through to you. Do you have Oreos stored? I mean, I hope that you guys have at least a week's worth of Oreos. I mean, the rest of us could go on living just fine, and if Oreo went out of business, you guys would be having your own personal SHTF. We'd have no way of knowing. Huh, that's pretty cool, DMAC, about the trucks that you bought. A couple oil rig trucks. Yes, Myra, if you don't know Gangsta Giggles, she has a problem with Oreos. There have been interventions, but to no effect. I'm actually an enabler. D-Max says it gets dangerous there when the Oreo party pack comes around. Oh, okay. Morning Light is sharing her. I guess I'm not sure of your gender. No, I know. Okay. But the state of internet out there tends to be spotty. Only problem Gangsta Giggles has with Oreos is when there aren't any, apparently. Oh, you know what, guys? I'm going to mute you. I'm going to go switch my laundry over. I'm going to go be domestic for a second here so that it's dry in time for work. Be right back. Good morning, Vietnam. Am I the only one here who misses Robin Williams? Wow, Rollis, I'm curious about that 2030s micronova. That is quite the prediction. I didn't know we had capabilities to. Where are you getting that? It is blue with clouds here. Yeah, Dead Bullfrog, Uncle Al, you're talking about December 27th a lot lately. So I've got that written on my calendar. I'll be watching out my window on December 27th. I'll tell you that. Yep, Robin Williams was amazing. It makes me sad when I think about him. He was one of those people who had a lot of pain inside, and he compensated for that by trying to make other people happy in ways that he felt like he couldn't. I felt like that sometimes in the past in my life, and I really appreciate people who selflessly try to make other people happy. What? I want to ask you what issue you need to resolve there, Gangsta. Probably has to do with sticking somebody, but yeah, try to stretch out. We were talking about limbering up and the importance of physical activity, getting your full range of motion to get toxins worked out and to get some endorphins and hormones to help yourself with energy, decrease pain, and maybe increase life expectancy. I'm actually planning on doing a video on this, but I also decided to do a live stream this morning. So that's the topic that I decided to make it about, is limbering up, stretching, physical fitness, whatever that means for you, and just taking care of your body so it takes care of you. Yep, Gangsta, I know what you mean. I'm lucky to be pretty fit, but I spend a lot of time thinking about people who are impaired. I have multiple family members who have physical limitations. My dad, who has always been the symbol of hard work and just self-sacrifice when it comes to always working and things like that, just in the past few years has been basically made disabled by just some chronic issues that he has. So I think a lot about people who are not able to go and work hard because there are people that I care a lot that are directly connected to my life that have a lot of, I mean, I compensate somewhat for my family members that aren't able to go out and shovel snow or do those things. That's part of why I'm living here. So I do think a lot about people who aren't in peak fitness. And I mean, not to whatever, but that's something that is missing in a lot of prepping community, because either a lot of preppers are fit themselves or they think they're fit when they've really got a little more around the middle than they realize. But either which way, they don't really address a lot of people who need some extra considerations whenever it comes to low level workouts or just motivation to get moving and stuff like that. I've dealt with very low motivation in my life, depression and stuff like that. So I know all too well what it is to go for years without any motivation to push yourself physically. I've also had periods of time, long periods of time, where I was forced to work harder than I should have. So I've been on both sides of the spectrum. Neighborhood walk, Anna says. Don't do it in the cold, but on the husband's days off. Very good. Walk the perimeter of the neighborhood. Do it in the cold, D-Max says. Yeah, brisk cold walk can be good for you. No, I don't think anybody who thinks you're lazy. And anybody who doesn't appreciate what it is to deal with more challenges than they do. That's one of the problems with A-type personalities, is they can't understand what it's like to not be an A-type personality. I'm sort of a mix of an A and a Z type, or whatever it is, that wants to lay in a bed for days on end. If I let myself, that's what I'll do. So on the other end of that, I have to be as busy as possible to not falter. So it's different for everybody. But this right here is why I focus on the full spectrum, because I have been at the rock bottom of motivation and physical fitness for myself. And I've been on the high end of more endurance than, a lot of people, just because of my metabolism. So I do try to focus, I think that is important to focus on those who do need the motivation, who tend to get overlooked by people who say, well, just go do it hard. But if you were watching the beginning of the stream, a lot of what I was focusing on wasn't physical fitness so much as like walking around, hiking, doing all of the hard things. A lot of people who do those things actually completely overlook things that are much more important, like stretching and limbering up. Even if you are bedbound, like my dad is often, so I have multiple family members who deal with severe chronic pain, to the point where moving around in any amount, literally standing up and going to the kitchen, can cause agony later that day. So a lot of people don't appreciate what it means when someone says that it is agony. They get, they pay for it with agony whenever they do any physical motion. And in many cases, that's a illness related thing. But even for chronic problems, like deformities or things like that, a lot of people don't appreciate that it's not necessarily something that you can just push through and that it takes time to work into. So that's why I do focus on stretching, because it's something that every single one of us needs to work on. If you don't do yoga every morning, then you should be. I don't, but I often do have to stretch out because of the things that I do at work, and the time that I have. I often take the time to stretch. Uh, but I should be doing full range of motion each morning because that's what's going to get the toxins out. That's what's going to get your hormones moving and give you the motivation to do the other things. So if for you, that is literally just laying in bed and trying to move each limb around and then flipping to the other side and doing it, then that's what you do. If you get up and stretch out and take a walk each day, then that's great. But I think that the point is to be moving forward, whatever that means for you. And so that's what I've tried to focus on whenever I'm talking about physical fitness. But it is something that whenever I hesitate to talk about it, it is because there is such a wide range of experience with it and where everybody is at. Hey, Westwind, how you doing? And Foco, thanks for dropping in, guys. Yeah, if you guys want to talk about pain, Uncle Al knows about pushing through it. Uncle Al and plenty of people out there have been dealing with pain for a long time, and you can't just stop and things go on. So that's part of the scary part of life, is knowing just how much we might have to deal with and keep going on. But that's part of why I say stretch and things like that. Part of the reason that people like Uncle Al and my own grandfather, who's 92, and he got hit by a car recently, and he's walking again. The only reason for that is because he ate healthy, and he's been being healthy and working and moving his whole life. I do believe that you got to use it or lose it, and that's why I suggest stretching, especially if you don't have an active lifestyle. You need to get the blood swishing around, and the muscles are pumps that help the heart. So if you're sitting around a lot, at least just keep paying attention to moving the legs. That's going to help you keep from getting restless leg syndrome later, I believe. And it's just going to help you with a lot of different things, mostly to do with keeping the toxins out and keeping the hormones up. Foco's been lurking. I wondered, we had more people than we had people talking, so I sort of feel like, no, but he did like a video recently, so he could be out there. Does anybody smell any maple syrup? Sometimes people open a window and then they'll listen to the chat without talking because they don't want to get involved in conversations. But they're there. Westwind Survival says, you hit a point where pain is life. Oop. It's my get ready for work on a normal day, but we still got time. So Westwind Survival is saying, you hit a point where pain is life. If there is no pain, there's a problem. That's a good point. I'm not quite there yet, but I do know what it's like to wake up with pain. For me, often the only way to avoid that is to have stretched the day before, and the only way to get out of it is to stretch now. But that's a good point. If there is no pain, then it might be your sensation of pain that's wrong. Pain is about growth. Growth is about pain. If you're not growing, there's something wrong. But I think he was sort of getting at a different point there. Second shifters, some morning for us might mean noon. Yeah, you know, it really depends. I have often worked where I started at 1 in the afternoon and worked till 1 in the morning. So that's when I was machining. But I have kept vastly different schedules throughout my life. Yep, I know that about your husband there, Anna. Constantly dealing with some level of agony just to work there. That's how it is for a lot of people. Do we need to? Yeah, Hooples is out there liking comments. Why isn't he in my live stream? Or is he? That's what I was hinting at. Thinks he's too busy for the rest of us. For shame. Morning Light makes good points. Um, Drinking lots of water is really important for the same reasons that I've been talking about. Uh, Toxins and things like that. Your body is a liquid system and it's supposed to be largely water, but most of us become dehydrated. I drink a lot of water, and even yet I notice the signs of dehydration because I drink a decent bit of coffee and the water is constantly fighting that in your system. So you want the water to help clean out the toxicity. If you're not, that's going to be pain. Wash out the cellular waste, like Morning Light says, equals less pain. Wow, Team Foco, that sounds uncomfortable. He has more than 16 bone spurs, is what he's saying there. 14 if you live in a rural area. Myra. He might be lurking. He might not. He's probably working and grading papers. He doesn't need some American talking in his ear. Painkillers will be a huge deal after SHTF, and I agree with that, Prepper Tech. Things that actually help people are going to be a big deal. Inner bark of willow is good for pain. Self-medicate with natural supplements most probably stay off of the pills. Pills are ugly. I've seen that personally in my life in various forms, both with abuse and subscribed pills. Yeah, opiates, things like that, they can really be bad for people. And just, I mean, completely separately from abuse, they're an energy drain, they fog you up, and they're just strongly addictive. So, apparently I'm supposed to be getting ready for work, but I'm working a little later today than normal. So, anyways, concentrated. Be careful with willow aspirin. It is harsher than normal aspirin, and it's much more easy to have toxic effects with that. Hey, Nick, let's keep it clean. I don't want to be talking about hard drugs in here. Westwind Survival is saying that turmeric, glucosamine, chondroitin, and hyaluronic acid helps with joints and inflammation. And that's right. All of those things are things which at a chemical level inhibit the inflammation within the body. Baking soda is rumored to do so, although that has to do with the lactic acid. And apparently lactic acid largely acts as lactase in the body, which baking soda doesn't directly affect. But I do believe that the baking soda will keep lactic acid from developing into lactase, which is what burns in your muscles. So I take baking soda after a heavy workout because I have noticed personally an anecdotal effect with taking baking soda and feeling less burn the next day. And the same thing with just general muscle pain. If I've been working and keeping my back in the same position for a long time, same thing. Baking soda, at least to myself, maybe it's a placebo, maybe it's not, but taking a little bit in water and drinking it is something that I've noticed helps me. And like I said, that may just be coincidental. All right, you get one, Uncle Al. Haven't needed any so far, but we'll start handing them out. Picture of Oreos. I think that's illegal in some state. Unsolicited Oreo pics. That's not cool. Yes, wild lettuce I've heard a lot about helping with pain. I'm really curious about some of this stuff. What I need to go and do some research is people who have used these alternatives for opiates, to replace opiates. Because if that's the level of pain that a lot of people have. And anything is going to help, but what I'd really like to hear is the opinions on people who have either used it to help wean off of opiates or who have already come off of opiates and who are using it, so that we can get an honest comparison on somebody whose body is in that position. Hey, Food Forest, how you doing? Thank you, Uncle Al. Nick, we're trying to be family friendly here. We talk about serious. Oh, there he is. Uh, we do talk about serious stuff here, Nick, but we don't need adult content for no reason. I told you guys he was out there in the YouTube sphere. Yeah, Morning Light. Unsolicited Oreo pics are unappreciated by some. Some people are trying to stay on the straight and narrow. How you doing today there, Hooples? Yes, coming off meds. So yes, uh, reuptake inhibitors, basically people who are using pharmaceuticals to compensate for chemical imbalances in their brain. Those are going to be the really ugly ones coming down, especially when they're people that you care about and can't ostracize. So one person who'd be great to keep an eye on who talks about that kind of stuff is Hoople's cat, EPL there. He is a medical care professional. So if any of you aren't following him, he's currently doing a pandemic series, which a couple of us are doing commercial videos for basically. But Hoople's cat is where it's at when it comes to getting no bullshit information about medical stuff. Gangsta shares that Kratom is working for them. That is going to be one of those things that's purely anecdotal so far. Curious what Hooples has to say about Kratom. But if it's helping people, it's helping people, and that's what some people say. I haven't done legitimate research, so I can't really speak to it, but the words that people are saying are good. Okay, yeah, so basically Hoople says you pretty much might need to strap people who are coming off of psychology med or psychotropic meds, and maybe even people who are coming down off of opiates, just strap them down to the bed and dose them with marijuana if you can, because it really is ugly. I have dealt with people who are addicted to opiates and who don't have them, and there's a reason that people say that it puts demons in them because people act very differently and erratically whenever they're coming off of things that they're addicted to, especially when they're in high stress situations, which is usually what they're in that situation. Interesting, Evil Rick. I've heard mixed reviews on that. Some people get a very beneficial effect from CBD, and some people it doesn't do much for. It really, I think, has to do with your body chemistry and what the imbalance is. A lot of it has to just simply do with the chemical signals between synapses, and different people have different chemistry. Different people are different, lacking different things, and so it really just has to do with what locks and what keys you need. Useless advice is to get off them now. You mean useless because it's not something anyone's going to do, but it would be good advice if you were able to get off the psychiatry meds, which are widespread and highly addictive. It is sad that that all information about how to survive and how to get by without your psychotropic medications is limited out there. But all the things that you can do to limit your dependence on powerful psychotropic or opiate medications is going to really help you out just in the short term, let alone the long term. I've been hearing some pretty interesting things on how the gut biome is important for those kinds of, for even psychiatric problems. Um, largely having to do with undigested whole proteins that get through your leaky gut into the bloodstream and then assault cells or cause inflammation throughout your body, including in the brain. And that's what causes migraines for a lot of people. It can cause severe PMS, pretty much can cause all the problems that you might be experiencing. So if you have problems in your life, one of the best places to start is to start working on your diet in your gut, eating greens. If you can stomach sauerkraut or other fermented things like kombucha, and start getting your gut biome in line. It's one of the most neglected parts of health. Sorry, I'm missing out. Yes, Hoople's cat should probably be on psych meds, but we like him the way it is. So maybe just some counseling. Just kidding. As far as I can tell, Hooples is an upstanding member of the community. Ooh, okay. Uh-oh. Everybody get ready. The reveal is going to happen in the next pandemic episode. Again, if you guys aren't watching Hooples, follow him. He does a lot of interesting videos. He recently did one sharing what a lot of big channels make off of, or supposedly make, using Social Blade and various other inputs to inform him on what prepper channels are making. So he gave us a little bit of an idea on what people like Canadian Prepper might be pulling in from AdSense revenue on a yearly basis. Pretty telling. Some of them, it might be pretty surprising how much they make. Some of them, it might be surprising that they don't make as much as you thought. But then everybody's making money from product placement, Patreon, and various other things like Super Chats. So definitely an interesting video. He doesn't just talk about medical stuff, but the medical stuff alone makes his channel one of the main things that first got me interested in, because legitimate, no-nonsense medical information is pretty rare. So I think it's important to latch onto that wherever you can find it. And I just like Hooples. So definitely check out that series, his pandemic series. Each episode is worth watching because in each one he's sharing some kind of technique or procedure that's going to be useful in a pandemic type situation. We're talking about how to properly put on N95 masks, how to take them off without contaminating yourself as you do it, when you need to quarantine somebody and how you need to do that, how to live a day-to-day life in the same house as somebody who needs to be quarantined. That's all stuff that you're going to be up a creek without a paddle with if you haven't learned it. And pandemic is one of the most likely things that we will face. It's pretty much an inevitability. So go watch Hoople's Cat, his pandemic series, and just subscribe to him so you catch his stuff. That goes for pretty much anybody here who's got videos. Uncle Al, Westwind's got videos, DMAC. Just go down the list, check them out, and watch their stuff, because I don't really communicate with people who don't have good stuff. Not yet, at least. Lemon water helps with kidney stones, Evil Rick says, as in helps you keep from getting them. That's, I think, good advice. Hey, Hidden Valley Homestead, how you doing today? I haven't gotten to your last, you put something up recently. Greek yogurt for gut, yep. Yogurt has cultures that will help reignite some of your microbes. Just eating greens a lot is going to give the fuel for the healthy bacteria to start recolonizing more. Everything that we eat, the processed food, the sugar and stuff like that, fosters an environment for types of bacteria that aren't very good for us. Unless you've had really powerful, nasty radiation or antibiotics, you've got decent gut microbes in you, and you just need to start fostering them. So things with cultures in them like sauerkraut, kombucha, good yogurts that aren't too sugary and have actual active cultures in them, so Greek yogurt, stuff like that, those are going to help your gut start winning that battle. And that's going to have a strong effect on your energy level and inflammation throughout your body, and maybe even some of the more serious problems that you have, including perhaps brain problem, chemical imbalances. I deal with my own problems. I've always had some kind of thing. I grew up with supposed ADHD, grew up strongly medicated using things like Ritalin and Adderall and stuff like that. And so in my adult life, I still do feel the effects of my body not having a normal development, and perhaps even for a while coming off of the effects of those medications, which are strong and can sometimes take years to recondition from. So I strongly believe in doing everything that you can to give your body the tools that you need to be as healthy as possible. Hey, Corsair, how you doing, Steve? Good to see you in here. We're just having a cold coffee morning chat. Hoople's cat says that if you eat industrial meat and dairy, none of this great advice from me is worth anything. So I've actually been wondering that. Hooples obviously does not think that yogurt cultures are worth the dairy that they come in. And that industrial meat and things like that are pretty much nuking your gut biome. Now, I'm personally of the opinion that, you know, you should at least start the battle, and you'll probably eventually start tuning out the meat and yogurt. I know that I actually have, the more that I eat greens and stuff like that. It does get me enough energy. I'm not going vegan or vegetarian anytime soon, but and antibiotics in most, including farm fish. Okay. Yep. So Anna shares that her stepchildren, who are all on meds, are still have effects from that. She would say still has effects from those medications. Yeah, if you eat chicken, you're eating bleach, Hubel says. Yeah, if you don't know the process that it's going through, it's probably going through a process that you would feel uncomfortable eating the things after you've watched it. But yeah, Anna was saying it is true that a lot of people, even after you're done, especially if they've been medicated through development, like childhood and teenage years, those are neurons that are being formed under the pretext of having a chemical balance, which you may not later have. So I dealt with a lot of depression and different things in the years after I came off of regular medication use as an adult. And for a long time, I would have what I attributed to chemical mood swings that I attributed to the medications that I was on during my development, basically. So Hooples is essentially sharing health advice in the form of drinking food, not products, and trying to filter the chlorine bleach out of your water. Our bodies are chemical systems, and everything that we put into them has an effect on it. I shouldn't be preaching because I am not very pure in all of my intakes. I drink bottled water and I eat plenty of meat and dairy. But seafood, thanks for dropping in. Oh yeah, thanks. Thank you. More than happy to host. And the fluoride, yep. I plan on getting a Berkey, and when I do, I'm going to be drinking out of Berkey and stainless steel. I do think that everything that we can do to decrease toxic effects on our... I've been cast into outer darkness because of my bottled water, guys. I'm sorry, I'm lazy in that way. If I had a credit card, Hooples, I would buy a Berkey and I would stop using bottled water. But I'm in that gap where I need to start setting aside the money to get a Berkey and continue to drink water without getting it out of my tap. I guess I should just get a Brita and slowly step my way up to something decent. Oh, I know. I know. My tap water isn't that bad. We live in an area that is pretty conscientious about it. We got a lot of hippies and homesteaders, so I wouldn't be too bad with my tap water, but I can taste it. So Evil Rick uses a Sawyer with a carbon filter behind it. The only reason that I'm just a little nervous with the fiber ones. I would just see them. It's foreseeable to get mold around here. There's enough spores in the air and enough moisture that if you leave something moist for a while, it'll start collecting stuff. So on a day-to-day basis with the cavity inside of a mini Sawyer, I would just be nervous about that. I like element filters for that reason, because if you leave them without water sitting on them, they'll dry out. Interesting, DMAC. Dr. Sebi, I'll check that out. Careful what you say here, guys. I screenshot stuff. I don't even have to take notes. The purr filter for the tap. Yeah, Westwind. I actually, I mean to do improvised filter videos. I want to get a real Berkey for myself, at least the cheap version. But I want to do improvised filter using Pure or Brita filters, because you can set up, like if you get a tall PVC tube and you set that, affix that to the bottom of a 5-gallon bucket, and you put your filter in the bottom of a 10-foot PVC tube, that's a lot of gravity pressure that's going to force, you're going to get a lot of flow through on the filter. So the 5-gallon buckets are decent, but I'm going to actually set up a wall mount system where you can filter large amounts of water. It's going to require you to carry the water up a step ladder, but you could set up a pretty high flow system in your house. Yeah, the Brita would just be a stopgap measure to get off the water bottles and start saving. I mean, I don't spend a lot on them, but start saving the money a little bit. I'm not exactly efficient with my budget, and I've really been thinking about doing a no spend period, because I've spent plenty of time unemployed in my life. Where I lived before, it was all seasonal. So you pretty much just had to hop around and have personal side work, which is a good thing to have no matter what. But I've spent plenty of time where my weekly money output was zero for almost 3 out of 4 weeks of the month, just basically living with family, eating what meals were provided, and otherwise just sort of bumming around. Don't spend $1 bills. Those are the only bills I have, Hooples. You don't know what I do for a living. Maybe you do. To distill water. Yes, DMAC. Distilling, having a home distillery for water is also something that I need to focus on and share, because unless you do have something like a Berkey, you can't be sure. And even then, even with a Berkey, sometimes I would still want to be sure of some things. Might still boil it sometimes, depending on where it came from, or boil it first. I'm a big fan of multi-layer purification. I reveal no secrets, Hooples. A gentleman doesn't strip and tell. They don't buy anything in the month of January every year. That's an interesting way to do it. Okay. Time into each one, or divides it amongst them all, and she doesn't touch them. And whenever each one reaches the ability to fund what she needs, then there you have it. Evil Rick has an envelope and he only puts $100 bills in there, and it's full of air. Yeah, Steve, he beat you to it. It's not what I do. I sell foot pics on Instagram. I tell them that I'm a sexy teenage girl. Yeah, Hooples, I remember you mentioning that you did a no spend February or something like that a while back. Yeah, no, I don't. Oh boy, Hooples, no. Never to people that I know. All right, this is a family channel, people. It's not, but wow. Westwind stored a $3 Bill Clinton dollar. Thought it might become valuable again when Hillary became president. That's betting on the long shot right there. That's sort of like Hooples the vegan learning how to skin human, which he's done. I mean, he hasn't practiced it, I hope. Plastic water. I have so much testosterone that I actually need to limit myself, Hooples. The men near me would be intimidated otherwise. Glad Steve appreciated that. I live in a suburban area, so the beard already, you know, normal men shrink a little bit. They don't. This human skin. The thing about human skin, Westwind, is it shrinks quite a bit as you tan it, so you need a considerably larger starting size to fit you, I've heard. They should fear the beard. Nobody fears, you see, I guess maybe a beard isn't too, it's like a lion's mane, you know, it makes my neck look a little beefier than it does, but I tell you what, if I fight a guy with a beard, it's the first, I'm going to grab it. But at the same time, if you get control of my head, that raises the threat level quite a bit. And you're pretty close to me at that point. Oh, skin makes good writing paper. I suppose. Good leather for shoes. Yeah. No. Yeah, no, if things started getting rougher, I'd get rid of the beard. I've actually contemplated it lately. It's getting to be warm around here, and well, not warm, but it will be soon. And sometimes this thing gets in the way. It's usually shorter than this. It's, I think, about 1.5 years that I've been letting it grow. So I'm not horribly attached to it, just by the roots. Yeah, I've heard pig skin is pretty good for tattoos and things like that for duplicating human skin. Yeah, Uncle Al points out, just like anybody does whenever I mention a gas mask, that it wouldn't seal on this. I could actually just paste the crap out of it with Vaseline and get somewhat of a seal if I really clenched it down. But no, really, a hood would be the best way, something that goes down and seals onto the neck. I actually feel more I would feel a little bit more comfortable minus the hearing loss, just because having that seal here, that can jostle. Whereas if you actually have the hood and it's just clamped down onto your neck, that feels like it would maybe be a little more secure. Then your other layer can come and clamp onto that. But you're talking about more expense there. It is hiding something, Hooples. I have a weak chin. Also, there's a blade up in here. Don't miss the beard. Face seal works good. Yeah, Westwind, I'm sure with the actual full face mask with the good, that the seal works just fine. And they have helmets. Add a cooling system to the hood. I'm catching up with you guys. Shave the jawline and get a seal. I guess several times with a beard. So you just sort of lift it up and do like a little fire line under the beard so that you can get, just sort of wiggle it in there. All right, see you, Hooples. Thanks for dropping in. Glad you could. You have a good day out there. .3M does make good masks. I like the ones that I've seen from them. All right, yep, see you, Hooples. Time is at 7:30. Yeah, we got a little bit of time yet. Men with beards carry more germs than a house dog on average. You have not met my house dog. And I'm pretty clean about it. I don't know where them germs are coming from. I spray Windex on this thing every morning like a good Greek. I'm not Greek, and I don't spray Windex on it. If I do carry those germs, then they're just my natural friendly face germs, and I'm giving them a neighborhood to live in, Foco. So I don't know what the problem is. Exactly, morning. That's the one thing that I really think of between fire lighting. If you did have like a sweaty, greasy beard from a few days, that might actually be a fire hazard. But yes, a fight, somebody would be able to grab your beard, gain control of you. If someone did that, I would be forced to get really nasty and go right for their eyes or something that I wouldn't normally do. But yeah, I mean, in a normal brawl, I'm not too worried about that because I do have a force spectrum to worry about. But if life started looking a little rougher for me, I would get rid of it in a real quick fashion. I'm already thinking about doing it. I'm not exactly sentimental about my facial hair. I don't like being clean shaven. I like a little bit of something there, but yeah. If I ever worried about, oh, see you, DMAC. Thanks for dropping in. I'll catch you later. Yeah, Westwind, no rules in a fight. I mean, if you don't want to go to jail, there's rules in a fight, but I try to avoid fights that are monkey dances. That's the term that Meditations on Violence, the book by Rory Miller, which I do plan on getting back to, is, it's just videos keep rolling in front of it. But he describes it as a monkey dance. You get two apes that want to pound their chest. There's certain rules that they're going to follow. They usually aren't going to really draw blood or do anything besides punch each other a bit. Those are the fights I try to avoid, just sort of societal ranking fights. You can usually avoid those through tactics and situational awareness. So yes, try to avoid the fights where there are rules. Try to avoid the fights where there aren't rules. And if you do get in a fight, don't limit yourself based on weird ideas about what a fight should be. Yeah, very true, Anna. Gonna have to shave it off first thing. Evil Rick lights a lot of fires and still has his beard. Yeah, if you're careful, you shouldn't. I mean, I think I singed it a little bit on the last one because I got pretty close, but people have been living with beards for a long, long time. Hey, thanks, Hidden Valley. Yeah, guys, if you want to hit that thumbs up, I think it probably does something. We're not trying to boost this stream out and get a lot of people in here. We got plenty of folks to chat with, but it does always help YouTube know that for all the people that showed up, a good chunk of them liked what they saw. One of the first cage fights in the 90s, the big guy lost because it was ponytailed. Well, gangsta, if you have crutches, you're bringing weapons to a fight. You give me a staff, I'll fight you. But, if somebody had machine guns in their wheelchair, that wouldn't exactly be very fair. You've got two big wooden sticks that you can whack people with. Uncle Al has seen a beard caught on fire with flint and steel. Why were they flinting and stealing their beard? You'd have to be really getting into it. Prepper Tech says can't grow much. No big deal. It doesn't actually increase your physical prowess like the Bible suggests. It's not the source of my powers. It's all in here. The ninjutsu redneck. Yeah. A primate fire demo in the wind. Well, yeah, the wind will really screw things up when you're trying to start a fire. Prepper Tech was talking about. Oh, did you put a video up about generators there, Prepper Tech? Or hey, David McC, copy chat. I got like 4 drips in here. Rest is out there in the coffee pot. Yeah, you know, I've never watched a lot of UFC. I watch it sometimes when it's on and I'm at the gym, or it just happens to come across my phone when I'm watching videos. But yeah, David, just about time for a refill here. UFC is much better entertainment than most sports. I will give it that. Those are some mean guys. You can learn a lot by watching them. It's important to remember that it is still a sport. They are still fighting within given rules, and that any one of those men, if they were focusing on aggressive techniques without the limitations of legality, and if they aren't inhibited by their rule-based training, would be doing very different things if they were actually trying to hurt each other. So you try going to a street fight where someone's trying to kill you, and you come at it like you've watched UFC people square up, you're going to have a bad time. So individual techniques, you can pick up some really good individual techniques. Don't think that you're learning a fighting style by watching anybody who's getting paid for it, basically. David, that's too hard to make a generalization about. You could be a boxer and somebody will take you out really quick using UFC techniques, or you could be a UFC fighter and all your techniques land on a brick wall who can wallop you in one hit. So it's really just going to be an individual thing. I think that if you go into any technique or sport or art thinking that it's just going to be a golden ticket to being the best at, or trumping some other technique, then I think that's not going to be what you get from it. See you, Foco. Thanks for dropping in. Thanks for chatting. Catch you later out there. I've got that mess kit, and I'm going to actually, whenever I go out, I'm going to actually test it for real. I don't want to just do it on my stove at home. So it's still coming. Thank you for that, and thank you for the books and everything. Catch you on the other side. Yep. So we got a lot of dirty fighters and gun carriers in here, and I strongly support that sentiment. Don't get into fights where you can't fight dirty. That's the basis of it. Don't go to parties. Most of the fights that I've been in where I've been in fights where I was getting literally kicked by 2 or 3 people on the ground with my 12-inch Bowie knife in its sheath in my hand. But because I had chosen to be at that party and they weren't actually causing me injury because I had a big old Carhartt coat and a hoodie underneath it because it was winter, I didn't pull the knife. So I chose to be in that situation. And if I'd started stabbing people, I definitely would have gone to jail, regardless of how much meth they were definitely on. And regardless of the fact that there were 2 on 1, I walked away from it. I wasn't even hardly really hurt. So there are different situations that you need to be considerate of. You carry a gun into a bar and get into a fight, you shoot the guy, you're going to go away in almost every situation. So don't fight dirty in fights that you picked. Avoid fights where you can't fight dirty. And yeah, if you get in a fight that you can't avoid, don't inhibit yourself based on weird rules of what you think a fight is. Yeah, see Hidden Ballet, just avoid fights every chance you get. That's Corsair Trainers. I'm sure a lot of you guys are watching him, but if you're not, go watch him. He talks from experience. He's been in it. So he talks about situational awareness, staying out of the situation, avoiding the fight. The things that he shares in the book that I'm sharing, Meditations on Violence. I'll find you guys a link here while we're talking. This book is about violence, how it happens, what it is, and what you can do to identify and avoid it. The ways that you can act that will de-escalate a fight or make it so that it is less likely to happen, to add resistance rather than fuel to the fire. So yes, that is one of the most important parts, is just avoiding violence, avoiding places where violence happens, and knowing how to avoid or escape from situations where violence might happen. And then once you've done everything you can to avoid violence, being very good at violence. And those are things that, like I said, Corsair Trainers is one of my favorite go-to channels. I always make sure to watch what he puts out because it is good information. And he knows what he's talking about. He's not just making stuff up. He shares it because it has been his experience. That's the most recent video of mine sharing the Meditations on Violence book. There are multiple episodes that are linked in the description box of that video. So you can go, the first episode is the foreword by fellow police officers of the author and stuff like that. You could skip that if you wanted to, because episode 2 is where we actually get into the introduction from the author and stuff like that. So those episodes, yeah, definitely, Steve. It's the truth. You have good stuff, and too many people talk about it from an armchair perspective. I definitely don't have all the experience that many people do with real world violence, having people try to stab me, having people try to kill me. I've been in my fair few brawls. I've had people go for my eyes. I've had some things happen, and I've spent a lot of energy trying to learn from reasonable sources. So I do share what I believe to be true, and I try to make sure that people understand it is anecdotal. But whenever I've got somebody like the book that I'm sharing, or you, Steve, at Corsair Trainers, who I can outsource liability sort of, and the level of experience to you guys, and say this is someone who can actually speak from experience, that is very valuable to me and everybody else. Yep, winning means you get home at the end of the day. As Corsair says. Yep, agreed. Yeah, Steve at Corsair keeps it very simple. He approaches it from a perspective that anybody can garner something from, whether you are a fellow Marine to him, or a law enforcement individual, or somebody who he's talking to in a peer level, or whether you're just like grandma who's sitting there trying to get a little bit of information from his videos. So, you know, a lot of people just sort of come at it from like, they're talking to you like you're already pretty fit and fighting shape, and have a little bit of experience, but they skip a lot of the basics, a lot of the stuff that they just sort of assume you've heard 1,000 times before. So yeah, Uncle Al also has definitely been in, I think he's had people shoot at him. He's definitely had people try to take his life. And he's lived in some seedy areas before. So not only does he know about violence, he knows about situational awareness and being in risky places. Yeah, David, talking, I think, about the Mayweather fight and McGregor. Everybody, usually whenever you've got people like that and you've got big, high publicity stuff going on, everybody wins all the way to the bank. Same thing with those YouTubers, one of the Paul brothers and somebody else. They had their little fight, and I didn't even hear who won, but they made money off of that. You guys want to do, any of you guys want to meet up and do like a fake, put some gloves on and just sort of box it out for views? I've been thinking about like a YouTube prepper Big Brother, where we get a bunch of big prepper channels and cram them all into an off-grid house or just out in a clearing in the woods somewhere and make them live bug out style for like a month together and see who is insufferable and who's fake and who's real. YouTube tough man. So yeah, we could just do a whole thing. We'll have a YouTube Prepper Olympics. There's going to be like the shot put and cage fights and like a biodome where we lock people in. And it's just going to be like a total Prepper Olympics where all of the expected skills are tested. This would actually just be a really good idea, sort of like a Prepper Con, but like, I mean, there's always a fire starting competition going on. Just every single potential skill has a tournament that you can watch or be included in, including bugging in. I think I think bugging in would be one of the most interesting things because I think a lot of YouTube channels turn off the camera and go live their life. And I'm guilty of that. I have a normal life that I had before I do this, but I do prep. If I say I do something, I'm doing it. There are some preps that I'm not able to get to yet, so I am talking from a hypothetical point of view, but I never claim to be doing anything that I'm not. And you can sort of tell with some channels that it's just sort of something that they take care of on in the background or something that they do for the sake of the videos. And then there are those channels who are obviously homesteading. They're fully in it. You can really tell the difference. Yeah, Uncle Al turned down Survivor twice, and I actually believe it. I could see them contacting Uncle Al to want him on that show. God, I would love to see a Survivor series season with Uncle Al on it. 2 groups in an off-grid area, see if they work together or one takes over. That would be a little difficult because they would know that they're being watched. So the observation would be a huge part of that, and it already would be a huge part of that. Yeah, Hooples would definitely need to be involved in any of these things, whether we're talking about cage fighting or being locked into a place with a bunch of preppers. And what would be funny is what the diet would have to be. We would either have to make everybody the same thing or make like each person takes care of meals for a certain period of time so that everybody's forced to live off of someone else's diet plan. Yeah, Westman, I have not watched a lot of the TV shows like Survivor or I have never watched a full episode of Doomsday Preppers or even much of a single episode. I went for a long time. I was living off grid or just not watching much TV. But I completely missed when that was airing. And ever since then, I mean, obviously, I was skeptical of it from the beginning. And then from hearing opinions from everybody in the prepping community, obviously, it's a load of BS, more or less. There's good stuff on there, but largely it's cotton candy is my understanding. So I just never have gone and tried to watch through it. I don't think I'm really going to gain any information. And I'd rather be watching other stuff, either for entertainment or information. Naked Unafraid. Yeah, I have a hard time imagining that. I mean, it'd be cool to do a TV show, I'm sure, but I just don't see them as. I think that once you got there and we're actually in it, it wouldn't actually be people following you with cameras, watching how you do stuff. There'd be too much studio interaction for it to be anything but an acting gig, I think. I don't think that would pretty much be surprising for anybody. But, I mean, for shows, they're better than a lot of the TV shows that are out there, so you can't really blame people for watching them or stuff like that. Evil Rick says Doomsday Preppers was a really good comedy. Egos get big by paintball. Yeah, a good little paintball fight among the prepper channels would be good. Yeah, watching Naked and Afraid, watching those shows could be good for learning moments where you watch them with your kids and tell them what they're doing wrong, what the people on the show are doing wrong. That's actually why I like watching movies and things like that. I think I've only done maybe one or two movie reviews here. Eric at Lord Humongous does movie reviews. Can't picture Hooples in a cage fight. I can picture Hooples in a cage fight. He's working on leaning up a little bit, and once he does, I'm sure that he would fight nasty. Um, he's a vegan, and vegans are generally pacifists, but he's revealed that he would fight nasty if he had to. Um, Alone. I haven't seen that one, but we'll check it out. But yeah, one of the main reasons that I like watching movies from the perspective of a prepper is because I actually find value in the times when I'm watching them and I'm going, that is not how you would do that. You would do this and this and this and this. And I've actually watched a movie where they were in a situation that I hadn't really considered before or had a challenge that I hadn't really come up against in my mind. And I'm like, you know what? I can actually think of exactly what you would want to do in that situation. So maybe I didn't gain anything because if I found myself in that situation, I'm probably already ready to come up with that idea. But I usually learn more from watching the mistakes of others than from watching them do things right, at least whenever it comes to movies and stuff like that. So TV shows like that are valuable for looking at somebody else's mistakes because we do learn well from the mistakes of others. It's better than learning from the mistakes of yourself. I mean, you learn more from yourself, but if you don't have to make the mistakes the first time, that's even better. Yeah, that's the main problem in Hidden Valley is that they do reinforce the stereotypes about preppers. Yeah, Acer, Hooples, and hey, Acer. I haven't seen you comment yet. Maybe you've been lurking. Thanks for coming in. And yes, he did do his military service, and he wasn't a vegan or a nurse then. If I remember, he mentioned he shot the Enfield, which takes some skill and technical knowledge. So yeah, no, Hooples has not always been a vegan pacifist. I wouldn't put it past him to have a little bit of claw to him. Les Stroud's book is great. Yes, I've heard that. Bushcraft build-off was interesting and a bit more pure. That sounds good. I have not heard of that. Bushcraft build-off. I could absolutely see that being really popular. Building out of grid on TLC. And you see, I hear that Hidden Valley, Bushcraft is just more popular. It's wholesome. It's sort of instinctively pleasing to a lot of people. A lot of people like to sort of watch stuff like that and imagine that they're fulfilling their instinctive desire to be primitive or tribal or something like that. And that's, true. So yeah, bushcrafting for the same reason that if you go look at bushcrafting channels, that, just a few of the popular ones, they have usually a much higher subscriber and interaction count than a prepping channel with a host who's comparably enthusiastic. You can be pretty boring as a bushcrafting channel and still be huge just because people really like that stuff and it is very generically attractive to people. Exactly, Evil Rick. I'm not a prepper. I'm just a guy who likes to camp and doesn't like to run out of things. And that is one of the best descriptions of what to call a prepper without calling it a prepper. And if I could have encapsulated that kind of thing into a video channel name, I would have. The reason I like Let's Talk About Prepping, it lets me be more than just I'm about prepping. I can say that I'm stepping back and trying to talk about it objectively and approach people objectively rather than being like, my channel could be, here's why you need to prep or something like that. I think that boiling it down to the essentials like that, a prepper is essentially somebody who likes to camp and be ready to camp and who doesn't like running out of things. Then you get guys like Uncle Al, who hasn't said it yet, but he's not a prepper. He's an old school survivalist, one of the last ones. And that's what I grew up with. When I was young, I was very into survivalism, bushcrafting, and stuff like that. And I remember vaguely the period before prepping became popular. It used to be survivalism. It used to be just old Vietnam vets who just kept doing that kind of stuff, just survivalism. Uh, and only pretty much in my lifetime has it transformed into prepping and the prepping community that we know of now, which sort of came hand in hand with doomsday preppers into the limelight. Oh, now I'm vet here. Thank you, Evil Rick. Vietnam was always the period that I was very interested in learning about war history and the experiences of soldiers and stuff. So when it comes to reading soldiers' firsthand accounts of their time in war, Vietnam is largely what I have read experiences from. So thank you for your service, and everybody else here who has served in whatever capacity. Acer, right on. Well, thanks for lurking. Hope your trip is good. Is it business related? You going out for some camping, or what you doing? Lurking. Yeah, exactly, Corsair. It did used to be just what everybody did. You had a full pantry and etc. It used to be just, I mean, not even just common sense, but just a normal practice of life to have as much as you could of the things that you needed within reason. If you could have a year's worth of toilet paper and tissues and stuff, and it wasn't digging into other things that you needed, people had it. Maybe everybody didn't go to the full year's length because of storage needs and stuff like that, but they were also more self-reliant and not necessarily needing as many inputs for their everyday life. They were getting by without all of the convenient products to do jobs that they used to just trade time and energy for. But yes, all right. See ya, Uncle Al. Thanks for dropping in. Hope you have a good little walk and breakfast. Catch you later. Good chat. Yep. Yeah, Rick. That's you're right. A lot of people give a lot, but you know, it was signing that check that we're thanking everybody for, and we do need to make sure to thank everybody for what they gave. But as far as I'm concerned, when you thank someone for serving, it's for signing that blank check when they walked in. All right, see you, Prepper Tech. Thanks for dropping in. We probably won't be too much longer ourselves. I actually do need to start getting ready for work pretty soon. But yeah, you know, people just used to live more sustainably. They lived their life in the way that they knew that they could provide for, and they did whatever they could to make sure they could provide for it, whether that was having money stashed or usually having the things that they needed for the foreseeable future. Thanks, Hidden Valley. Yeah, appreciate it. Glad you like the topic. It's shifted a few times here. And yeah, appreciate that. If you guys hit the like button, we're actually doing pretty good today. We got a very high like to presence ratio here. But yeah, Hidden Valley, I don't know if you're heading out, but thanks for dropping in and chatting. I guess probably you're just saying that because we're heading out all together soon. Already at work, 310 feet high in the sky. What do? You work on cell towers or something like that? But yeah, we still got about 10 or so minutes, 15 maybe. Just sort of winding down. I got work in an hour and a half, but it doesn't take me long to get ready. But yeah, you know, the best way to be prepared is to already be there. I try to eat what I prep and prep what I eat. And largely, most of the things that are in our storage are already in our diet and get rotated pretty regularly. Oh, crane operator. Okay, cool. Good stuff. Stay safe. I guess if you're in the crane, you're probably let's see, you're on a high lift crane, huh? With the vertical spire rather than a cab crane, huh? So don't fall off that thing. But yeah, you know, if you're cool. I bet that's a good view. Some of those places. That's pretty high up. You ever get distracted and just forget what you're doing? Probably not. I'm sure you're all on top of the job when you need to be. If you work near your house, you could just bring a hang glider up with you and fly home. Tower crane. Okay, cool. That would be a good name for it. Makes sense. But yeah, just finishing off the thought that I kept referring to. Um, a good prepper is somebody who likes to camp a lot and for long periods of time and never likes to run out of things. So you're basically just making sure that you have plenty of the things that you use into the future and you're ready to live however you need to live at any given moment. You can see the cops coming from a distance, fires, riots. Yep, no hang glider home, huh? That's too bad. If you carry a rope from your house to your job and climb up there with it, you'd have to hang it out and pull it through the bars. You can make a zip line. But that reminds me of the idea of having a hot air balloon in SHTF. If you were able to just heat that thing up and float up like a few 100,000 feet up into the air, that would be a pretty good low cost recon thing. You'd have to be pretty careful with your OPSEC. You know, if they find where you the bait, you know, if they go under it, they're going to find you, and you might need to drop ties, have your base camp go follow you, and meet you somewhere else. But a hot air balloon or a ultralight personal plane would be a very efficient way to get some recon from the back of a helo in Norfolk. I would not be too surprised. I've seen some videos from people just going straight up in a helicopter or something, and you start to see, you know, I mean, do you see curvature? I'm sure you can see curvature from how high you can go in a normal helo, but long distance, yeah. Exactly, morning light. Can you make a getaway in it? That was sort of the point. Is a tower crane wouldn't exactly be a very feasible prepper thing unless it literally happened to be parked in a very nice spot. But hey, I mean, if you know where a tower crane is sitting and you can go set up your bug out camp there, there could be some very useful things from having a perch that high up. And maybe even, I don't know, I guess those things, you probably wouldn't be able to run those in a grid down. How does a tower crane run itself? Is that like is there a diesel motor that helps it turnstile, or what is it, just electric motors? And where do they come from? Are you running generators at the bottom, or is it on the grid? Because if you're able to, there's some stuff like that that could be interesting to have available to you. I can't necessarily think of too many grid down uses for a tower crane, but aside from a bird's nest. But I've sort of wondered about, like, you know, the giant earth movers, like the huge ones that they use in quarries. Those things use way too much energy to ever move around with. But I've sort of wondered about like using it as a bulletproof house. Like if you were to literally just park one somewhere and build inside of the bucket, those buckets are big enough to build a small apartment in. If things were really ugly, that wouldn't be, I don't know, that's pretty outlandish. That idea is actually something that I've been considering writing into a short story because it's so outlandish that it's probably just good for fiction. I was actually thinking about a group of engineers in a quarry who have so much fuel and stuff that they end up retrofitting it with apartments inside and scaffolding on the outside and turn into a roving group of marauders. Not really marauders, they're benevolent, but they sort of just move this giant earth mover across the face of the land, scavenging fuel sources and just going in big patrols and pretty much stripping the land and bringing in people or making the area barren. Thanks, Morning Light. Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't want to be up there in a shit at the fan. And same thing with the hot air balloon. You would be a big blazing target. And so that's why some of that stuff is just sort of outlandish. But I do think that the ultralight airplane, if you were able to get that up, take a look around, and get it down, packed away, and out of there fast enough, could be a pretty decent recon option. Before we say drones, I want to do research on if you can use drones to stream. Some people have said that some drones do stream wirelessly directly to a device without using the grid. But I hear a lot of people talk about how drones will be really good for recon in an SHTF. And I don't think they appreciate that a lot of drones actually need a cell phone on board to be able to do live streaming to where you're actually able to see what it sees in real time. Otherwise, you're just sitting there and flying it in a circle and then reviewing footage afterwards. Using what in the Civil War? Oh yeah, hot air balloons, absolutely. I think that there were actually some French ones even before the Civil War. So yeah, hot air balloons. That's where the term the balloon goes up comes from. I did a video on that a while back. In World War I and some of the engagements before then, the indication to most of the people on the front lines who weren't given information as to when an offensive would start was when the observation balloons went up just behind the lines. They stayed down, and just briefly before an engagement started, the balloons went up, and that's when all the guys got their first warning that it was about to go down. So yes, that term, when the balloon goes up, pretty common in the prepping community, directly comes from the usefulness of hot air balloons in some of the situations that we might find ourselves in. I have, oh yeah, I think I said goodbye, Morning Light. Thanks for dropping in. Yeah, I did. Glad to see you here. But I have mentioned before how World War I and World War II are pretty good analogies for some of the situations that we might find ourselves in, because in both of those wars, you were seeing forms of technology, the beginning of electricity, the beginning of the motor engine in World War I, and both of those strongly implemented in World War II. But a lot of the guys who were dealing with them were not used to the technology. And so that's a good analogy, because a lot of us are going to actually be stepping back into a form of technology that's somewhat closer to World War II or World War I. And while we're more comfortable with it than your average farm boy was back then, we're going to be dealing with similar circumstances. And if you're actually in a group or a town that's fighting a nearby group, you might find yourself in trench warfare. So World War I and World War II are pretty decent to look at. I like World War I more because on an individual level, you are more likely to deal with supply issues. World War II is largely a war of industry. But on the individual level, it's very good to look at how they carried their supplies, how they got by on a day-to-day basis, because far more than even Korea and definitely Vietnam, resupply wasn't nearly as prevalent in those wars on a weekly basis, and more time as you go further back. You look at the kit on a World War II guy, one of them has a shovel, one of them has a sledgehammer, one of them has an axe. They've got redundancies and cross-covering purposes. But a platoon of World War I soldiers was more or less an excursion force as well as a group of fighting men. Yeah, of course, so they can stream, but they are expensive. And that was about what I understood. Your average drone has a latch for like a Apple phone or something like that. And they have a camera, but it links in through that. The good ones that have some kind of radio antenna, like a really powerful wireless or Bluetooth, or I'm not sure what they use, those are going to be at least a couple $1,000s, I would imagine. But yeah, so Westwind says he plans on getting a couple to patrol the property. So Westwind, have you looked into that, and do you know which ones you might use? Are they, how are you going to stream that, or are you just going to do a pre-planned circuit and then review the footage? Hidden Valley says Bluetooth connected to cell phone, cell service not required. But what kind of range do you get? It would have to have a, I mean, they would both Does it need? Does your phone need a Bluetooth booster? Because the Marine Corps is trying to issue drones at squad level. Yeah, I know that the different branches have been looking at hand deployable drones, the little toss drones or whatever, or even just your little quadcopters. Um, and obviously, they're going to have much stronger capabilities. They could even just satellite link them, which would still be, you know, a lot of satellite. Satellite telecommunication systems will be available in a lot of SHTF situations. It really just depends on if they need on the ground support to do the linking that they do. But if you're talking about just pinging off of satellites for local purposes, you might be able to still rely on stuff like that. DJI, okay. 4 miles with just stock phone Bluetooth and the drone that it comes with, that's remarkable. You might have told me that in a past video. Yes, Westwind is very resourceful. I always like his comments and what he shares. Sorry, what's Magic Pro? Is that a device or a program, or what is that? If it gets out of, wow, that is remarkable, Hidden Valley Homestead. See, that's exactly what I was wondering is, because if you just flew it straight at its range, I wondered if it would just hover or crash, or if they actually do have a about face and return mode or something like that. DJI Quad. Huh. Okay. Okay, thank you, Hidden. I need to check it out. I need to catch up on some of you guys. That is really cool, Rick. Okay, see, I plan on doing some looking into this because so many people do just sort of throw it out there, and I think a lot of them are just sort of following the hype of being like, "Oh, that's a really good idea, and drones would be great." But whenever you just watch your average person out there with a drone, I think a lot of people don't appreciate that those have SIM cards in them, and they're just piggybacking off of the cell phone network. Um, so if people are buying a Walmart drone thinking that they're going to recon with it, they're not. But $500. See, that's amazing. I mean, I'm sure that they're a lot more new, but that makes it within the realm of possibility for more people than I had thought. I was thinking you'd be looking at $3,000-4,000, and I'm sure you are for a decent one for a powerful drone that will have the runtime to do a patrol and stream back to you constantly. $1,000 at Best Buy. Wow. Yeah, no, most people are using them for toys. Now that I understand that, that makes it a much more feasible consideration that I might actually, if I got to the point where I had my other big ticket items all taken care of, that would be really cool to just be able to do an actual recon of the area. I've spent enough time doing, yeah, see you, Steve. Thanks for dropping in, Corsair. Good chat. I'm glad you were able to be here. But yeah, you know, I like flight simulators. And so I could see them being fun just to have. I've had just a little, literally like a $40 toy airplane that had pretty decent yaw control and stuff like that, but it was literally just an indoor model. But I really enjoyed that, and I could see myself really getting into a live stream drone. So the fact that they can do it for themselves with a decent range, because 4 miles is plenty of range. Yeah, have a good day, Steve. Catch you later on the tube. You don't need a 4 mile range to check out your neighborhood. In your average suburban area, 4 miles as of a radius is more area than you reasonably need to cover to figure out what's going on just to go one neighborhood over or something like that. And in a lot of SHTF situations, just being able to send something out and take a look around before walking there yourself will be great. So yeah, see you, Hidden Valley. I've already pushed my 10-minute boundary. We could chat all day here. So thanks for dropping in. Thanks for sharing your information. I'm going to go back and start checking out some of your videos. Make the time for it because you've obviously got some real information to share there. I expected as much. So thanks for dropping in. You have a good day. Oh, see you, Westwind. Did I miss you? You heading out? I don't know. Gotta go pick up. Yeah, guys, why don't we wrap it up? Looks like it's about that time. I gotta start getting ready for work, and it's been 3 hours. So let's start the day. Some of you guys are already out there, but all right. See you, Westwind. Thanks for dropping in. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Evil Rick. Who else is lurking? But thank you guys for joining in. It has been a really good chat. I didn't necessarily know who all would be here, but I'm really glad we all showed up. So yeah, you guys all have a good day. Y'all stay safe out there, and I'll see you elsewhere on the tube. Yeah, thanks, Anna. I was wondering if you were still here. I'm glad that you made it into a live stream. It was good chatting with you. You have a good day, and I hope you're all well. Stay safe out there.